if you are a border control agent and you come across a couple of adult males walking with some children at the border, you may be suspicious that maybe those children aren't the biological children of those two guys. And so you may think that those children are being trafficked or otherwise are being helped across the border to go find their parents. Agents report seeing the same kids over and over, being used as cover essentially for coyotes to smuggle, traffic other drugs and illicit substances, including children themselves, across the border. So when the agents find those kids, they will separate them from the parents because they're not quite sure that they are. And again, I just think it's interesting the left cries about you're putting kids in cages and separating people from their families, because that's the claim. And a drug dealer who wants to use his human shield, the child, legally or otherwise, for just cause in entering the United States, well, that's supported by them arguing to keep the families together, regardless of whether they're related or not. Hey, you have a kid you stole, and now you can get across the border anytime you want. You just bring the kid. So the kid's a victim, and we'll try to rescue as many of them as possible from that. But that means separating them from those parents. And some of them are parents. Some of them will rejoin their families after so long, after DNA testing can confirm that they are related. But the left did not care about this all throughout Obama's presidency, did not care at all about this until Trump was president. And then it was the biggest issue in the world. Kids in cages, they all gotta go. We need to open the border, and this is a humanitarian crisis. Remember? The emergency that Trump called, that there was a caravan so strong at the border that we needed to have emergency funding for a wall. Smart move, because they're now going to say, well, it's an emergency for all these people coming across, so we're going to open all these facilities to house these children. Isn't that odd that Biden would immediately go with the first big move he makes at the border after trying to halt funding for the wall to finish the last 100 miles or whatever it is that needed to be renovated? Biden says, hey, we need a new place to hold all the kids. These kids are not comfortable. We need to keep them nice and comfortable. So Biden administration preparing to open an overflow facility for the migrant children. Now, I don't mean some sound callous or come off as if I don't care for the well-being of the children. That's the opposite. The reason that I think we need to have as much separation at the border as possible is because so many of those people are victims, and if you don't separate them, you'll never save them. So you'll say, well, doesn't that hurt the 1 in 100 kids who's taken away from his parents and scared for 30 days? And then when he rejoins them, his parents have charges and it's all messed up, man. Yeah, that's sad. Enter the country legally. None of that will happen then. There is another option. So they say the Biden administration is opening an overflow facility for unaccompanied migrant children apprehended at the U.S.-Mexico border. The federal agency tasked with children's care told CNN in a statement. So, it's not that they are unaccompanied at the border. It's that they were trying to cross the border, and they've been separated from the people they were with because they're not family, and now they are unaccompanied. Hey, we've taken this child out of the back seat of the drunk driver, and we've arrested the drunk driver, but now that's an unaccompanied minor. The police report wouldn't have you believe then that the cop found a toddler out in the back seat of a car alone in the middle of the night. The report would tell you that he was with someone who's been arrested. That's what happens here. These kids aren't just, wandering in a mass of 100 children in the desert. They're crossing the border with people that aren't well-intended adults, to put it mildly. The Health and Human Services Department will reopen a facility in Texas, in Carrizo Springs, I think I'm saying that right, that can accommodate about 700 children and can be expanded if necessary. Gosh, Biden's going to have a field day. The reopening of the facility comes amid an increase in apprehensions of unaccompanied children at the border, fueled in part by deteriorating conditions in Latin America and a perceived possible relaxation of enforcement. Perceived possible relaxation of enforcement? How about a total call-off? I mean, the people that support Biden were the same people firebombing ICE facilities, so I don't know how this really is surprising to them. Of course there's going to be a relaxation. Reduced capacities for the limits at other facilities due to COVID-19. It also comes as President Joe Biden rolls out new immigration executive orders tackling migration at the border. Okay. Is it not perceived possible relaxation if he's calling out new immigration orders already? So, 4,730 children were currently being held, as of Thursday, in the Office of Refugee Resettlement Care. 5,000 kids that are unaccompanied, that do not have parents with them. Many, I'm guessing, cannot be ID'd, at least accurately. So, you gotta wonder, if Obama started the separate and cage them, and where do they go from there? Where do they go from there? Because Trump was saying we need to stop them coming in so that there's not a business incentive for a drug smuggler to abuse children. That's the whole point of stopping them coming in at all, is that if the effect of them coming in with children is that they'll come in with children and those children get abused, then don't let them in. Then the children don't have a reason to be abused in the eyes of the abuser. Right? The children are a just means to an end for the criminal crossing the border. So if you don't allow anyone to cross the border illegally at all whatsoever and you enforce that, then they don't have the thought of, well, let's get a kid and cross the border, because that's a moot point. They can't do it. Kids in cages, it's true. Obama built those cages, but Trump's zero tolerance immigration policy had no precedent. That's the point. The precedent was, we're kind of lax at the border and we'll just take all the children as winnings or something for the elite. Trump said, cut off the flow of traffic and then they won't be using children to do the trafficking. Period. So where do these kids go? Kids in cages was a catcall. Or a catch-all. Either one, really. I can read. A catch-all for the Trump administration's approach to immigration enforcement in recent years, to the president's evident frustration. As he pointed out during Thursday's debate, this is a while ago, he didn't build the cages. Obama did. They built the cages, They used to say, I built the cages. And then they had a picture of a certain newspaper, and it was a picture of these horrible cages, and they said, look at these cages, President Trump built them. But then it was determined they were built in 2014. That was him, pointing at Joe Biden. They built the cages. And Biden sidesteps. Let's get back to what we're talking about. Well, we're talking about parents ripped away from their children. Yeah, a lot of them, right? 4,000 adults arriving every day. 4,000 children right now being held. And where were they all going to go? Central processing, and then into what? Is there like a big giant group where these kids can all go hang out? Because if you look, hey, for sure, 100%, we at the USA Today can confirm. No, you may not have my location. Get the hell out of here. We rate this claim to be true. Based on our research, the initial claim correctly attributes migrant holding facilities to the Obama administration. However, this meme doesn't elaborate on the intended purpose of the facility. Not the actual purpose, not the actual use, just their intended one. To hold migrant children for only 72 hours, not 60 days, not indefinite detention, but just 72 hours before releasing them to the Department of Human Health. Department of Health and Human Services. Did they end up getting there? That's the whole point of this video, right? If you say, good, separate the children, because we're helping them, like the intent, then you have to wonder, is that what happened? Because if it's not, then it doesn't matter what your intention is, get a new plan. If that is what happened, then your plan is working. Where'd the kids go, Joe? Where'd the kids go, Barry-O? Obama administration places children with human traffickers, the report says. This is from the Washington Post. 2016, they were still willing to tell you something that was true. Let's get a couple sentences here. The Obama administration failed to protect thousands of Central American children who have flooded across the border since 2011, leaving them vulnerable to traffickers and to abuses at the hands of government-approved caretakers, a Senate investigation found. Well, I'm glad that we can investigate and prove how terrible that whole system is. Looks like we should just shut the border entirely and only allow legal crossings, only allow legal migration. Fill out the paperwork, you wait, you pay, and then you can come in with merit. Because when we do anything else, we will inevitably have this happen. You'll have kids coming across with coyotes. By the way, if you're still thinking that that means an animal, then you are yourself an animal. Read a book. Use Google. Can you believe that, though? People on the left really did think that when Trump said that they have coyotes crossing the border, they laughed and howled and said, oh my gosh, he thinks that, like, miniature wolves, dog-like creatures are running across the border. They have no idea what coyotes are referring to. But anyways, you have coyotes taking children across the border, so long as it is at all crossable illegally. Because that is just part of the business. Bringing kids is both a cover and a product. So the Senate says, when we save those kids, we're just putting them back in the hands of those people on this side of the wall, and half of them are government approved. Well, that's not a great thing. Thank you, Senate, for finding out. What did you do about it? Nothing. We had to elect an outsider president to build a wall. People said it was medieval. Yeah, because that shit works still. The Office of Refugee Resettlement, an agency of the Department of Health and Human Services, fails to do proper background checks of any adults who claim that children, allowed sponsors to take custody of multiple unrelated children. Where were Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt at this time? Because that would be like a swap meet for those folks. Regularly placing children in homes without visiting the locations, according to a 56-page report released on Thursday, late January of 2016. So, once the children leave the shelters, the agency permits adult sponsors to prevent caseworkers from providing them post-release services. So, send you off without a paddle up Schitt's Creek with a human trafficker. Modern-day slavery. Teens nabbed at the border, sent to an egg farm. If you think that we are not already living in a dystopian future, got news for you. Anyways, let me know what you think in the comments below. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing and liking this video, sharing this video, and subscribing to the channel because it helps us boost the signal and do everything else that you can do to keep America out of these cages and afloat.